This is the Post Shift Podcast, a raw look at the hospitality industry. Post Shift Shot with your host Shawn Soole, obviously. You're listening to me right now. So I got to sit down with Mike and Lee from the Drake Eatery here in Victoria. And my real focus with them this week was to talk about how do you keep your mission statement from the get-go consistent all the way through? Because I know that when they first opened, you'll hear about it. They had some detractors, which every restaurant and bar has when you first open, but it's really important to sort of listen to them and take in what they say when it comes to sticking to your mission statement. Plus, we chat about how it is to work with your partner and stuff. It gets a little noisy, I apologize. I am working on getting some new equipment fairly shortly, which hopefully will alleviate some of these issues. It's not easy. There's not a lot of mobile podcast sort of equipment out there that I can just easily buy. And so I am working on it to get the quality a little bit up there, but I hope the content is doing you some solids. Enjoy this episode and have a good week. Bye.
Yeah, when we opened our first restaurant, I thought I was still doing my automotive thing. Thought I was going to keep doing that, and then the restaurant was going to be a lease project, but it was...
That's never how it goes.
No. I thought I'd do the odd bar.
What year was
shift,
that?
But 2002 we opened.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Which one?
Yeah. Knock 'em Back Grill.
Oh, okay.
Out in Saanich. Did that for 10 years.
How long's the Drake been open for now?
Coming up 5. It'll be 5 years
Oh,
August
wow.
1st. Yeah.
So what drove you to do the Drake?
There seemed to be a great craft beer culture here in Victoria that we had easily identified. But I was confused that other cities seem to have craft beer focused bars, like hyper focused. So an Alibi Room in Vancouver, for instance, and Toronto and San Francisco, and I could go on. But there, with all the great breweries here, and on a retail basis, you could go to the stores and have great access to a lot of great beer that was being brewed here in BC and elsewhere. There didn't seem to be a bar or a restaurant that was hyper-focused on that. And when we looked at restaurant models and saw pizza places focus on pizza, Chinese food restaurants focus on Chinese food, so can a beverage venue focus on one particular beverage as opposed to trying to do everything. So.
It was definitely when that time, I remember like being back in Clive's, it was definitely like a bit of a cart before the horse sort of thing. Like we had this epic beer culture, and you go like Cook Street Liquor Store or Strath, and it's just like just beer for days.
Right.
And then you'd still go into your local pub and it'd be like, oh, okay, so you're still rocking out Budweiser and Macro Brews. Yeah.
Canadian.
Yeah, it's so scared. Yeah. So scared to like take that plunge deep over. Yeah.
We went through that a bit with our first 2 restaurants. When we started, we had some Blue on tap and probably about 10 taps. And we had a mix. We had a couple of craft breweries. Our customers weren't that into craft beer back then, but slowly we started developing the beer list. Mark from Brasserie introduced Mike to a new brewery opening in town called Phillips Brewing and said, here, try this. They went to sommelier school together, and Mike thought he was going to give him some wine, but he handed him this Phillips beer.
What's this? And he was just drinking brand new one-man brewery here in town. I'm like, are you kidding? He goes, you got to put it on top. We hadn't opened yet. It was about 3 months before we opened. And called Matt Phillips up, who I'd never met. You know, it's Mark's telling me, you got to get this guy's beer. So, tried your beer at Brass and really like we're opening a restaurant, like to have you on tap. Ooh, I don't know. I already have 7 accounts. I don't know if I'll have enough beer. Well, we could try it. Yeah, I guess we could try it.
That's crazy.
Yeah. We've been selling this beer ever since.
I think the wonderful thing with Phillips is that I don't think there's a craft brewery out there now, per se, that opens with that sort of worrisome. Like, when you open a craft brewery now, it's like, okay, well, I know I'm going to get at least 5 accounts in the first week of me opening.
Right.
But you can imagine being one of the first craft guys going, I'm not sure if I want to put it on tap yet.
And there was, he'd freely admit, there was a lot of learning curves in those early days. He was literally sleeping in the brewery. And,
I've heard the stories of like labeling bottles on the way to Vancouver and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, he hand carried in a 50-liter keg, first keg we got from him the night before we opened. And I looked at him carrying it in, and I went, "Where's your dolly?" And he goes, "Well, I'm saving up for one." And he was dead serious. And I went, "Oh man, we're going to get along really good."
It was a little rusty hatchback.
Yeah,
He was using
Subaru wagon.
Saving up for one.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
So
I think you're right. Most brewery startups now, there's a significant budget behind those breweries. And I have seen a very small handful of guys that are basically garage brewers that are trying to follow the Phillips model, but that's not a common thing that I see.
No.
So, and like you said, there's a big enough craft beer culture now that somebody opening a brewery has some confidence that at least people are going to try their beer.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's good. They try it again.
it kind of quickly increased from that point on, right? The products that became available were kept increasing. Our guest and our interest in it kept increasing till the point where we made the decision to drop anything that was, any macros.
Which
it was a
Saanich
tough decision.
Especially in Saanich. That's a big call.
Yeah, we were more nervous about it than we should have been. It turned out.
Yeah.
I mean, there was some pushback, but we really didn't lose. We were the neighborhood place for that neighborhood. So the people that lived there, the few that were upset with us eventually came around. They came in, they drank Islander.
Yeah.
I mean, I was bartending then, so I'd be doing blind tasting on them because they'd order their Canadian, and I'd pour them Islander without them knowing, and then you'd try it. And it wasn't until the third one that I told them, you're drinking a beer brewed right here on the island. You're supporting local businesses.
Yeah.
We learned we had to own it, not apologize for it, but then help people along.
I just started with the staff, like getting the staff to understand why we want to support these local breweries. And once they bought in, then they could help us sell it to the consumer, educate the consumer on why that's our focus. But when you gave that customer that story, then they were happy to pay the extra 50 cents for the pint.
And really is only 50 cents.
Yeah.
So that was the knockerback. That was just Saanich. When did the Drake start sort of evolving as an idea?
I'd say about 8 years ago now.
Yeah, probably 2012.
Yeah. So we
started
we had,
working on it.
For a while we had 2 restaurants that overlapped, and we were working ourselves to death, and we weren't enjoying it. And so we were trying to envision a model. We loved the industry, wanted to stay in it, wanted to be proud of what we were doing in it, but we wanted to have a lifestyle that was a little more sustainable. And so we started conceptualizing what would eventually become the drink. And then once I started kind of going, we're going to try to do this, I spent 2 years coming downtown, just wandering around the streets looking for a location for the mentality. Eventually found that spot. So.
What was the aha moment that started the Drake? Like, was it just the sort of, not necessarily the work-life balance and stuff, but the craft beer movement that you'd seen in the change there? What sort of was the spark that was like, okay, well, we've got to do this downtown?
Well, I don't know if there was particular anything that like an aha moment, other than as I mentioned previous, we knew that there's a lot of beer available here, just not on tap a lot, or at least not a focused place. And Garrick said he was doing a great job with their putting their 50 taps there, or 55 taps there, and the church opened shortly before we opened here, so that's another 50 taps. And they're doing a really good job, doing a really great job of showcasing the island breweries especially. And but it still felt like what we had in mind was a little bit different than what they were doing too, so which is good. And doing some traveling up and down the coast and discovered these little models of, we like that, we like this, we like that idea. Put them on. I'd say the one aha moment was when we were at Blind Lady Ale House down in San Diego, and it's a craft beer bar down there, just celebrating their 10th anniversary. It's super casual, but the owner, Lee Chase, was the head brewer for Stone Brewing for the first 10 years that Stone existed, and he left when he felt they were getting too big. Created this little pizza joint tap room with 30 or 40 taps of amazing beer, really well curated list. And sitting in that room, feeling the vibe, the smiles on the staff, and the ease of personalities of the staff working, it just felt super comfortable. And I think that's where Lee looked at me and went, if we could do this, I think that was the closest thing to an aha.
Staff were very knowledgeable, but no pretension.
No attitude.
Yeah, very comfortable. All ages, families, everyone enjoying themselves.
So we talked about history a little bit with the Howard Street Brew Works, but when you said you were walking downtown looking for a space, did you pick this space on purpose, with it being the first beer parlor? Because that's basically the history for this space here, isn't it?
Well, we had picked the name, I think, even before we did pick the name before we had picked the space. Because doing research on, I had a list of names, and I was looking for something. We knew we wanted to be down in Old Town or as close as possible, and I wanted a vintage sounding name. And, when I did my research, found out that the Drake Hotel opened up Victoria's first dedicated beer room, also called the Drake. That's like an iconic sounding vintage name. Every city's got a Drake, and I love it. So we kind of went with that, and then ultimately we end up in this location. It's literally right across the courtyard from where the original Drake was.
Wow.
Yeah. Just got a lucky happenstance on that.
This was one of the first spots Mike found, and we loved it. We were really excited about it.
Much bigger than we were looking for.
Yeah, it was a bit bigger. But the landlords got back to us and said that it wasn't available. There was another offer on the table, and they thought that was going to go forward. So then it was pretty much another 2 years of looking. We came close to a place on Yates Street. I think there's a quesadilla place in there right now that I wasn't really very excited about, and that didn't work. And then right at the end, this became available again.
What used to be in here?
If you go far enough back, what we call the Brewer's Den, the small one right here, is the Four Horsemen menswear store.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this main room, bespoke interior decor.
Oh, okay.
Place.
And then the Cafe Mexico in the back.
Cafe Mexico. That's now a front kitchen, locker and cooler. So all of them were empty, and they had been for quite a while, and the landlord wanted it to go as a package. I would have loved to have just taken just this piece. Yeah, we were fortunate to, on timing, there wasn't any other tenants in Market Square on the Pandora side at that time. Yeah. So we were able to, this is what I was budgeting to pay per month for lease, so that's what we offered them for the whole space. Got it. Ended up taking it. We got the call in July that the space was available, and it was December 1st before we settled on the agreement. Oh, wow. Yeah, there was a lot.
I bet there was.
But we were like, I'm not in a panic. Yep. We got it great. We don't, that's fine. We'll find something else. So, and I'm thrilled with how it worked out. The size has been actually worked out well for us.
I think you would have kind of regretted it, seeing how I've driven past this place on Friday night at like 6 o'clock. I would have, anything smaller you may have regretted.
If it was smaller, we would have been more tied to it.
Yeah.
And it's given us a lot of freedom to do even more beer traveling, which is awesome. So.
Oh, yeah, and the contacts you make when you beer travel and then you bring them back to Victoria is huge for Victoria.
Yeah, that's worked out really well for us.
Yeah,
And we
because we've
wouldn't
had
have
that
that.
time.
Right.
We've made so many great contacts and then been able to have some great events for Victoria, kind of bridging the gap between some beer communities along the
Yeah.
West Coast.
San Diego
So-
didn't know that BC had a beer culture.
Wow.
And a lot of, even beer enthusiasts here in Victoria didn't know or don't know.
San Diego was
has-
huge.
Yeah. So it's interesting going back and forth.
So really, I think the root of what I wanted to sit down and talk to you about has been something that's been on my head for a while. I know we've talked about it together. Is like when you first open, you open with a very strong mission statement about what you wanted to be.
Yes.
And you pretty much have, I don't think you've wavered at all, but you haven't wavered from, like, you basically said, this is us,
Yeah.
this is the way it's going to be.
Right.
And I think when you first opened, a lot of people were, obviously, everybody's always haters, but, like, there's always haters. But I think it opened up for places like Part and Parcel and that sort of thing to open and have the same, like, come to the counter and order and we'll deliver the food to the table. Because you have no table service.
Correct.
Zero table service.
Correct.
Which in a town of like hardcore like table service places,
We get a lot of compliments on our service, though.
Yeah. we do.
it's just very
awesome.
pointed.
Yeah.
Like 2.5 minutes while I'm pouring your beer at the bar.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, I remember when you guys first opened, I loved it here. But I remember like Google reviews and Facebook reviews of people who just did not understand the concept whatsoever.
We were nervous about it. Our other places were full service, kind of neighborhood pubs. So it was quite different. But we'd seen a lot of that when we were traveling, and the idea of, we'd seen a lot of small, concise kitchens too that didn't require a lot of people to manage, a lot more, using very simple equipment. And what Mike was referring to earlier, we just wanted to really streamline the business model to make sure that it was easy to operate and manage and staff, to maybe help, restaurants are a very tough industry to make a profit in. So
No,
we wanted
everybody makes
to
tons
make
of money
sure.
in restaurants. That's why everybody gets into restaurants.
Can you introduce me to them? So that was the idea behind it.
Right.
And
So originally, like I said, we were looking for much smaller space, and I was thinking like 40, 50 seats maybe. Lee and I working full time. I'm thinking we'd open at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, close at 10. Lee and I full time, the rest, maybe 4 part-time staff. And the idea being, I'm working behind the bar. Somebody orders a sandwich, I just jump to the end of the bar and I make that sandwich without having to go behind some wall or somewhere.
But you have great setup here. Like all your bar staff are trained in the kitchen.
Correct.
You have this sort of rotation that everybody has to do one portion of their job somewhere. I've seen your
But
most senior
everybody
guys on the
full-time.
door. Yeah, senior guys are on the door. Like they'll be on the door on a Friday night, but then they'll be in the kitchen on a Wednesday, and it seems to be harmonious. Like you have some long-term staff here from the get-go.
It's worked out. There's benefits to that concept that we didn't even foresee, but we were hopeful that would create that energy of everybody's on the same page because everybody's doing our jobs. So even if you're only doing 2 shifts in the kitchen a week, and the rest of your shifts are up front, you've got a good understanding of what the kitchen's going through.
What the food is and so on and so forth.
And vice versa. So everybody understands each other's stress points and is sympathetic to each other on any given shift. So it makes for a more harmonious work environment, I think. Plus, it allows us to, you get that hit at 4:30. We can pull staff off the bar to help out, pull staff out of the kitchen to help out at the bar to get that first rush of drinks out, and then vice versa when the food orders start coming in, then we can pull staff off the bar.
It's genius.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
it kind of started, when I was trained to be a restaurant manager, I was trained to be able to, you had to be able to run a kitchen, you had to be able to do all positions in the restaurant quite confidently, because you had to jump in and help when there was a situation. So with our people, we want our supervisors, when we started, we were like, okay, you're going to need to work a couple shifts in the kitchen. And then some other full-time people said, well, we want to do that too. And that kind of surprised us, but we were excited about it. And we put them in, and then we got rid of the different tip structure and decided to go with a tip pool that was divided evenly between everyone. So now we sit at, if someone starts and they're just part-time out front, they don't need to be trained in the kitchen, but quite often what happens is they ask for it because they want to be like everybody else. They want
and it drops the ego. It's not like I'm a bartender or I'm a host or I'm a cook or anything.
So I'm not doing dish.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it just loses all ego out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you first open, like all the detractors, because I think sometimes I know from opening restaurants for myself and opening restaurants for other people, I'm usually strong. Like my mission statement is my in stone. But I've opened restaurants for other people, and as soon as a bad review comes in, something gets changed. Or as soon as a quiet night happens, something gets changed. Right. And the knee-jerk reactions, and it's always difficult to explain to them that if you make a change, you won't see a change in anything at the end of it after 6 weeks, 3 months. Like it doesn't, like one change one night doesn't change something the next day.
Right.
But how do you, like, I think there's a lot of young restaurateurs that go out there and they just want to try and please everybody. And how did you deal with it back then? How did you deal with the detractors who were like, oh, they're not going to last a year because they don't do table service?
Right. Or we don't serve cocktails.
Yeah. That's my only hang-up sometimes, because sometimes I just want a shot and a beer when I come here, but then I'm like, okay, you know what, I'm okay with just because you, like, a lot of people...
We can recommend a nice place for you to go when you want a shot and a beer.
Chances are I probably open.
Yeah. That's right.
But that's the thing is, like, people who are listening, the Drake only does beer and a small selection of wine. And that is pretty, like some kombucha and cider and stuff like that, but, like, no hard bar.
Correct.
Which there
We're
is
licensed for it, but...
There is no other place in the town that has that. Outside, like, little Chinese restaurants or something like that. But, like, there is no hard bar, which is very obscure.
Yeah, and again, we just kind of wanted to. We were pre-opening. There was a lot of discussion whether or not maybe we have a limited selection.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then it's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
So you've got that. Why don't you bring this in?
Mm-hmm.
So when we open, try it. A year in, let's take a look at what we need to change, if anything. And a year in, we're real happy with we're paying our rent, paying our staff, paying ourselves. I saw no reason. Yeah, maybe we'd make more revenue if we had hard bar. We're happy.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not broken. The business continues to grow.
Yeah.
I think we learned from the School of Hard Knocks, like along, through our other businesses. I was in the industry a long time before we opened our first restaurant, yet it was still quite a big learning curve when we did open our first restaurant. And I think we just learned that you can't be all things to all people. I mean, I would definitely try, and you just be all over the place, and then your message gets mixed. Just like if you're going to determine your hours of business, you don't want to be wishy-washy on that because it just confuses people. So the same thing with what you're going to be. We decided we were going to be a craft beer focused place, and we were going to do it very well. And we didn't want anything to distract us from that. So we could do spirits, we could do other things, but it might take away, and maybe we wouldn't do the beer part, as well as we would like. So
changing the cocktail menu or doing a beer event.
Yeah. So we've been fortunate. We feel really fortunate that the concept has been embraced more than it's been.
Thank goodness.
Not embraced. And so we didn't have to react. But we did have to tell our staff and tell ourselves, we're going to stick with this. We had lots of customers in the early days say, I'm not coming back till you do full service table service.
Chances are they probably come back.
I don't know, and I don't mean it in a mean sort of way, but we're, as we said at the beginning, we're not trying to be all things to all people, but we're just trying to do a really good job of what we are doing. And I think being as hyper-focused on draft beer as we are, that means all our staff are focused on learning about that, and they're not trying to also learn a lot about a deep wine list, and also learn about a deep cocktail list, or also learn about a deep food menu. So if we're going to be focused like this, I hope we're all going to do a really good job at it, because that's our focus. So try not to make apologies for anything.
I think, well, talking with a lot of our staff, Ryan Bagma, who's been here a long time, we all know people that weren't comfortable with the service style when we started, yet they came around. And I think Mike and I are part of that. Like, we were nervous about it. Some of the customers seemed more comfortable about it than we were. We were anxious how people would receive it. But now it's a service style that we prefer. When
and the thing is, people are okay with standing in line, paying $4.50 for a coffee, going to the other end, waiting for their coffee, picking it up and going. But it's not okay to stand in line, wait for a $6.50 beer, and then pick it up and go sit down. It's very interesting. But I think Moon Underwater tried it just before you guys opened as well, and it didn't go down too greatly there.
It was under the previous owners that they used that model. We were nervous about it. I remember the first few weeks that we were open, I would stand at the back door and watch the body language of the people standing in line, and to see if anybody's getting impatient or any signs of that. And there was not. Most the people that I would see signs of concern from were our staff that were worried about the lineup getting a little longer. But what made me really happy inside was seeing the customers standing in line. We on purpose do not have core brands on our list, so you don't have Blue Buck here, you don't have that.
So they're thinking about it.
So they're looking at the list, they're going, I don't know any of these beers, so they're tapping the guy on the shoulder and telling him, hey, what are you going to order? Have you tried any of these? So those conversations started between strangers, which that's what we always wanted this place to be, was a conversational place. It's why there's no TVs in here and the music played quietly.
Was there any time at all that there was a point where you're like, crap, we should change this? Like in that first 3 months? Or no?
No.
You just stuck to it and that was it? That's very rare.
Well, I feel that we were very fortunate. We had enough people coming in, even in those early months, that responded in a positive way that encouraged us to stick. And even with those other people that were saying they're never coming back, kind of thing, I was seeing what looked like enough people, and that's our goal. Hopefully we find enough people that buy into what we're trying to do, that we're paying our rent, and we can pay our staff and feel good about it.
Perfect.
So, there's no, we want to open franchises, or like that was never, and we want to maximize squeeze every nickel of money that we can out of the place. That's never been the motivating factor. It's
making money is nice, but it's not the primary. It's the very, very close secondary thing.
Correct.
Next to the passion.
Right.
So what's been the best moment since you opened? Like event or new beer you tapped, or because I know what I'm like when I open a bar and I have like I wouldn't say hero, but like someone I've looked up to, a peer that I've looked up to in my career that's come and sat at my bar, or they come and like hang out and do an event or something like that. You get your giddy.
There's been a number of what for me were fuzzy wuzzy moments. I remember bartending one time, the first or second year we were open, and it was quiet, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I had 3 customers at the bar, all about 3 stools away from each other. 2 of them start chatting. I find out they've got something in common. And then the third one starts listening to him, so then he starts getting involved in the conversation. Turns out all 3 of them are brewers. One's from Toronto, one's from Calgary, one's from Montreal. They all ended up moving in closer, and then they're just buzzing about beer and brewing and the passion and everything. And an hour later, one of them turns and looks at me. If you had TVs in here, we probably never would have met each other. It's like, wow, I totally right. You know, like it kind of what we were hoping again for it to do is become that social environment. So, probably, I guess another moment too that I remember smiling about. There's been a few times when I've looked at the tap list and thought, wow, how did we get that?
Yeah.
Our first Oregon day, the brewers showed up. There's 7 brewers, I think, that came up from Portland for that one, from Oregon. And Alex Canham, the owner of Upright, was one of them. And he was looking at the list, trying to decide what to order, and he goes, "Holy shit, there's beer on here I can't find in Portland." So, well, that's a good list.
That's a nice like medal in the honor.
Yeah. So,
what about you, Lee?
I think, and I guess this is approval from our peers, but just being, down the coast in the States, in Portland or south of there, and people knowing about the Drake.
That's cool.
Yeah, so, and then our staff have also run into that, and they were really excited when it's happened to them, so it's a really nice moment to know that all the work that we've all done has worked out and people are aware of us. So
that's cool.
Yeah, we've got staff that are sitting at the bar and just shooting support, and then as they get up to go, they mention that they work at the Drake Eatery, and the bartender grabbing the phone back and no tap for you. And our staff had no expectation of that. Wasn't asking for it or anything like that. Another staff member at your location in Seattle again hadn't mentioned where he worked, but he mentioned a beer that we were pouring here, and the bartender goes, "Oh, you work at Drake."
Wow.
So how do you know that? He goes, "Well, I know that brewery wouldn't let their beer go to anyone else in Victoria."
Oh, wow.
And that's great press here, but it's super awesome for our staff to have those experiences.
Have that ownership.
It's not. Yeah.
So you seem content. Why in the world would you go and open a brewery?
That's an excellent question.
Well, just like we've just had this wonderful conversation about work-life balance and like enjoying beers in the afternoon and having to work the bar. And now, you know what? Let's go open a brewery.
Yeah.
We do like to work.
It wasn't something that I had in mind, like 6 years ago or anything like that. I don't brew, so why would I open a brewery? We have had a number of visiting brewers ask us why we don't have our own brewery. And then one of them from San Diego almost insisted that we open a brewery, and he wanted to partner with us on it, and he's a real animated character, and he's a brewer himself, and he's awesome. So I'll coach you, I'll train your brewer, I'll give you my recipes. And then I was like, "Are you serious?" He was dead serious. And he said, "You find the location, I'll fly up, we'll start." So I got to start thinking about that idea, and found a location we really liked. We did up a business plan, and this place was doing better and better with us doing less and less. Us being Lee and I, the staff were doing a great job taking care of it for us. So that meant we had time to look at the idea of doing another project. And then when Jordan and Jamie offered to steal an oak, offered to partner with us on it, that just kind of wiped all the doubt away from me. Those guys have built a very successful brewery ground up, and that's something we haven't done. So they've got that knowledge. They want to learn about what we're doing here. They're opening a little tap room in New Westminster, so it's in its very early days right now, so I don't even know if I'm supposed to mention that. But and their core values match up with ours, and so we're super excited. And like I said, I just any doubts that I had kind of got removed
when they came
on.
We also have an excellent crew of people that work with us, and we want a way to be able to bring more people up. So that gives us the ability to do that.
Without having another tap room.
Right.
And it's a substantial sized space out there. From the outside looking in, it looks like a decent sized space. But then
it's ideal, we think.
Yeah.
I mean, this one I think is 2,700 square
Yeah.
feet, and that one's 29. And we got a jam in the brewery in that
Yeah.
one. So but it does have 20-foot ceilings, so it allows for a legal mezzanine that we can then use for seating up there as well. So, and it's just that cool old 50s warehouse space, some brick walls, some the open ceiling, post-me type stuff.
There's nice light in there too. There's skylights,
yeah.
and then we'll have a couple of delivery doors that are open. So just like the Drake, there'll be nice light during the daytime.
Right.
And is the branding going to mimic the Drake, or are you
No,
sort of like
and we're-
trying to separate it completely?
Correct. So even though it's owned by the owners of the Drake and the owners of Sloan Brewing, we're not connecting those. We want it to be a standalone brand. So, I mean, it's a small town, so there's a lot of people have been obviously had a lot of press about
So much press.
about the Drake and being involved. So, but which is fine. But I think call it 2 years after it opens. I think Nigel talks about how a lot of people, he thinks the majority of his customers don't know that the Alibi Room and Brass Neck
Neck together. Yeah.
owned by the same people. So
What sort of style of beer are you going to be thinking about doing? Are you going to do a broad spectrum?
a broad spectrum, 10 of our own beers, and we have maybe 2 guest house.
Okay.
No core brands, just let the brewer play with recipes. We do have, after we were just down in San Diego, to reconnect with some friends down there, and quite a number of brewers are really anxious to help us out.
Wow.
So we're going to take advantage of that, and there's some beers down there that I've tried that it's so highly competitive down there. And I think we got 180 breweries now in San Diego, and so it's where we got like 160 in the province.
Yeah.
So if you're going to survive, you've got to be really good down there, and a lot of them are. So yeah, I think we're going to take advantage of some of that knowledge and bring them up here and
Let 'em
help
play
our
and-
head brewer dial in some of the recipes and
Sweet.
get really creative and get inspired. And, that's the goal anyway. Yeah.
Awesome. When do you think that's going to be open? When do you think it's going to be open?
When the planets align.
Because you're building now, yes? You've got the approvals
No.
and stuff?
Well, we have some approvals. Not all of them. We don't have our building permits yet.
Oh, okay.
So
Just the
we
demo.
thought we had them. They were, we should be ready Friday. Wait a minute. City building inspector came up with new requirements.
Oh, that's always nice.
Yeah. So,
We should hear something in the next 2 weeks on that.
you've gone through it, so you know.
Oh, yeah.
All of it,
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you've got a brewery opening in Market Square now too, which,
Super excited.
yeah.
That's awesome, and that's imminent. That's like within the month.
Oh, wow.
They'll be brewing. I'd say maybe even sooner. All the gear came in last week, and
Sweet.
they're a great bunch of guys. Gotten to know them. I mean, one of them, Matt, would be the head brewer. He's worked for us, so
Oh, sweet.
he's a great guy.
And you guys have created, like, when summertime is in Market Square,
Yeah.
it is really, like, full, like, you guys do the big party, and there's always a beer event in the square, and
The energy that location is going to bring to the lower courtyard on
Yeah.
a daily basis is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And it's just going to.
We're super excited.
Yeah.
So I got one more before we tie it off. Personal question: how do you and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there. How do you, as a couple, work together for so long? Because
It's been a long time.
I can't imagine not. No. So
Oh, wow.
when, as I mentioned, when we opened our first restaurant together, and I was started working there, what I thought was part-time quickly turned into full-time. And I looked at Lee and I said, if you're my best friend, this relationship means everything to me. If this job is creating any kind of tension between us and jeopardizing that, then
the job's not worth it.
I'm back to pinstriping cars. The job wasn't worth it. So, and like I said, now couldn't imagine.
We have different responsibilities, so that works out well. I think of Mike as the idea guy and the one that always keeps us true to our path. And then I'm kind of
The one that figures out how to pay for it.
yeah. I'm operations.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we obviously talk about things and we'll overlap, but we try and make sure that we don't, if it's Mike's area, like public relations or outside communications, then I'm going to go with whatever he thinks is correct. Sometimes it's tricky for the staff because they'll ask us both and get a different answer, so that's fun for them.
Do they play the,
Oh, yeah.
the mum didn't say the
Yeah.
answer I wanted, so I'll go see dad?
Oh, absolutely. But we've been doing this long enough that we recognize that pretty quickly. So.
It is kind of crazy because we work together all the time, and then when we're off,
together.
and we like it that way. When we're working, we don't really get a lot of quality time together, so we still enjoy our time off. So, yeah. We're lucky.
I'm not.
You really
I'm
are.
not telling Lee how to do the books because I'd make a mess of them if I did.
Yeah.
So, and she's not telling me what beer to order, and it works out.
And I think we're of the same mindset too. So we have. So that
You know
helps.
this. You have the same goal. You're just on different paths to get to the same
Right.
goal
Right.
with different attributes.
Right. I mean, we've been talking a lot about the beer program, and that's been my primary focus here. But I'm equally as proud of the food program that we're doing out of here, even though we do have this limited and unique type of kitchen concept. I'm still really proud of the food that comes out of that kitchen, where we're sourcing it from, and so forth. So, I think those where Lee and I are very like-minded on those kinds of things, type of things. So.
We just have different skill sets, but we have the same vision for the business. So that works out. That it's complementary.
One thing just popped in my head when you'd asked before about aha moments or something like that, but it was, we were having our Tuesday management meeting yesterday, and one of our managers interrupted the meeting to point out that just about every customer that we had in here at that time worked in the industry somewhere else in the city. And that certainly makes us feel good.
You can't manufacture that.
Yeah.
I know, like yesterday, I was catching up with Marley and West. West brought all his friends in from Vancouver, which I didn't even know West had friends outside of Victoria. But West brought all his friends in, and then Marley's sitting with JJ. And, and then Brad and Rob. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, don't bring that up.
He looks 23. It doesn't really matter. Like when I turn 40, I'm going to look 40. I look 40 now, and I'm still a couple of years away from my 40th.
We walked in today, and there was a table of 10 Phillips staff out on the patio. Nice.
You've made it.
Well, no, that's the stuff that makes us. This has been a great experience for us. Leah mentioned our other two locations we had were neighborhood locations. God, I was always afraid of the downtown concept, but when we came up with this model, and I talked to the beer people in town, they always said, "Oh, that should be downtown. Make it central and accessible." And, but it's highly competitive down there. But the community's been great to us, and it's awesome the support that we've gotten from other small operators here in the city, and there's been operators that have opened their businesses kind enough to tell us that they felt motivated to do so because of the success of the drink.
Wow.
Great. And maybe our concept will work.
Something different, like you said.
Right. Yeah. And their unique concept has worked out very well for them.
Yeah.
So,
Everybody's going to unique these days.
They say that family, and we're a family, owned businesses are usually extremely strong if they can get through the first couple of years. They're usually one of the strongest small businesses. So it's just hit or miss the first couple of years if they can figure it out. So
They can figure it out.
yeah.
That's always the
I think the critical difference too between this one and our other two locations is we didn't like our landlords in those two locations. They weren't supportive.
Yeah.
it was always a challenge. Whereas here, I mean, our landlord is Vancouver-based, but the property manager, their office is right below us. They've been awesome, just awesome, super supportive. Can't say enough about that. It's such a night and day difference to have that kind of relationship with.
I think years ago I said I would never have a business downtown. You have to be careful what you say.
Now you can have two.
Yeah.
Well, at that time there wasn't as many residents. Earlier on, when I wasn't managing, I worked at a hotel downtown serving, and I was third from the top in seniority. And in the wintertime, I had 2 other jobs. Yeah, it was a ghost town, but it's so different now. It's really becoming. I love the changes that we're seeing in Victoria. We're getting way more options for the culture. Yeah, it's awesome.
And on that, I think that's the best note to finish on.
You betcha.
Thank you for that, guys.
Cheers.
I really like that.
Thank you.
Hope it works out.
Oh, well.
When do we get to ask you questions?
Thanks, Post Shifters. I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you're listening, whatever platform you're on, give me a good rating, subscribe, listen along. I'm going to keep going. I really enjoy sitting down with people and learning where they're from, what they did, and how they got to where they were. So if you love it, give me a good 5 stars. If you don't, give me 1 and I'll try harder.